The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 3, Section 4, The Mission of the Vedanta, Part 2. The rational West is earnestly bent upon seeking out the rationality, the raison d'etre of all its philosophy and its ethics. And you all know well that ethics cannot be derived from the mere sanction of any personal personage, however great and divine he may have been. Such an explanation of the authority of ethics apply no more to the highest of the world's thinker. They want something more than human sanction for ethical and moral codes to be binding. They want some eternal principle of truth as the sanction of ethics. And it where is that essential or eternal sanction to be found except in the only infinite reality that exists in you and in me and in all, in the self, in the soul. The infinite oneness of the soul is the eternal sanction of all morality. That you and I are not only brothers, every literature voice, every literature voicing man's struggle towards freedom has preached that for you, but that you and I are really one. This is the dictate of Indian philosophy. This oneness is a rationale of all ethics and all spirituality. Europe wants it today just as much as our downtrodden masses do. And this great principle is even now unconsciously forming the basis of all the latest political and social aspirations that are coming up in England, in Germany, in France, and in America. And mark it, my friends, that in and through all the literature voicing men's struggle towards freedom, towards universal freedom, again and again, you find that the Indian Vedantic ideals coming out promptly. In some cases, the writers do not know the source of their inspiration. In some cases, they try to appear very original, and in few, they are bold and grateful enough to mention the source and acknowledge their indebtedness to it. When I was in America, I heard once the complaint made that I was preaching too much of Advait and too little of dualism. Yeah, I know that grandeur, what ocean of love, what infinite ecstatic blessings and joy there are in the dualistic love theories of worship and religion. I know it all, but this is not the time with us to whip even in joy. We have had whipping enough. No more is this the time for us to become soft. This softness has been with us till we have become little mass of cotton and are dead. What our country now wants are muscles of iron and nerves of steel, gigantic wills which nothing can resist, which can penetrate into the mysteries and secret of the universe and will accomplish their purpose in any fashion, even if it meant going down to the bottom of the ocean and meeting that face to face. That is what we want, and that can only be created, established, and strengthened by understanding and realizing the ideal of the Vedanta or Advaita, that ideal of oneness of all. Faith in ourselves, faith in God. This is the secret of the greatness. If you have faith in all the 330 million of your mythological gods and in all the gods which foreigners have now and again introduced into your midst and still have no faith in yourself, there is no salvation for you. Have faith in yourself and stand up on that faith and be strong. That is what we need. Why is it that 330 million of people have been ruled for the last 1000 years by any and every handful of foreigners who chose to walk over our prostrated bodies? Because they had faith in themselves and we had not. What did I learn in the West and what did I see behind those frothy sayings of the Christian sect repeating that the man was a fallen and hopeless fallen sinner? There I saw that inside the national hearts of both Europe and America resides the tremendous power of the man's faith in themselves. An English boy will tell you, I am an Englishman and I can do anything. The American boy will tell you the same thing, and so will an European boy. Can our boys say the same thing here? No, not even a boy's father. We have lost faith in ourselves. Therefore, to preach the Advait aspect of the Vedanta is necessary to rouse up the hearts of men, to show them the glory of their soul. It is therefore that I preach this Advaita, and I do so not as a sectarian, but upon universal and widely acceptable grounds. It is easy to find out the way of reconciliation that will not hurt the dualist or the qualified monist. There is not one system in India which does not hold the doctrine that God is within, that divinity resides within all things. Every one of our Vedantic system admits that all purity and perfection and strength are in the soul already. According to some, this perfection sometimes become as it were contracted, and at other time it becomes expanded again. Yet it is there. According to the Advait, it neither contract nor expands, but becomes hidden and uncovered now and again. Pretty much the same thing in the effect. The one may be a more logical system or statement than the other, but has to the result, the practical conclusion, both are about the same. And this is the one central idea which the world stands in need of. And now nowhere is the wants more felt than in this, our own motherland. Yeah, my friends, I must tell you a few harsh truths. I read in the newspaper now when one of our fellows is murdered or killed, ill treated by the Englishmen. Howls go up all over the country. I read and I weep. And the next moment comes to my mind the question, who is responsible for all this? As a Vedantist, I cannot but put the question to myself. The Hindu is a man of introspection. He wants to see things in and through myself or himself through the subjective vision. I therefore ask myself, who is responsible? And the answer comes every time. Not the English, no. They are not responsible. It is we who are responsible for our misery and all our disgradations, and we alone are responsible. Our aristocratic ancestors went on treading the common masses of our country underfoot till they became helpless, till under this torment of poor people nearly forgot that they were human beings. They have been compelled to be merely hewers of wood and drawers of water for centuries, so much so that they are made to believe that they are born as slaves, born as hewers of wood and drawers of water. With all our boosted education of modern times, if anybody says a kind word for them, I often find our men shrink at once from the duty of lifting them up. These poor downtrodden people, not only so, but I also find that all sort of most of demonical and brutal arguments cooled from the crude ideas of the hereditary transmission and other such gibberish from the Western world are brought forward in order to brutalize and tyrannize over the poor all the more. At the Parliament of Religion in America, there came among others a young man, a born Negro, a real African Negro, and he made a beautiful speech. I became interested in the young man and now and then talked to him, but could learn nothing about him. But one day in England, I met some Americans, and this is what they told me. This boy was a son of a Negro chief who lived in the heart of Africa, and that one day another chief became angry with the father of the boy and murdered him and murdered the mother also, and they were cooked and eaten. He ordered the child to be killed also, and the cook cooked and eaten. But the boy fled, and after passing through the great hardship and having traveled to a distance of several hundred of miles, he reached the seashore, and there he was taken into the American vessel and brought over to America. And this boy made that speech. After that, what was I to think of your doctrine of hereditary? Brahmins, if the Brahmins have more aptitude for learning on the ground of hereditary, then the Pariah spends no more money on the Brahmins' education, but spend all on the Pariah. Give to the weak for their all the gift, all the on the Pariah. Give to the weak, for there all the gift is needed. If the Brahmin is born clever, he can educate himself without help. If the others are not born clever, let them have all the teachings and teachers they want. This is justice and reason as I understand it. Our poor people, our poor people, this downtrodden mass of India, therefore requires to learn and to know what they really are. Let every man and woman and child, without respect of caste or birth, weakness or strength, hear and learn that behind the strong and the weak, behind the high and the low, behind everyone, there is an infinite soul, assuring the infinite possibility and infinite capacity of all to become great and good. Let us proclaim to every soul, Uttishta Jagrata Prapya Varanni Bodhata. Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Arise, awake, awake from the hypnotism of weakness. None is really weak. The soul is infinite, omnipotent, and omniscient. Stand up and assert yourself. Proclaim the God within you. Do not deny Him. Too much of inactivity, too much of weakness, too much of hypnotism has been is upon our race. Yeah, modern modern Hindus dehypnotism yourself. Their way to do that is found in your own sacred books. Take Teach yourself, teach everyone his real nature. Call up the sleeping soul and see how it awakes. Power will come, glory will come, goodness will come, purity will come, and everything that is excellent will come when this sleeping soul is roused to self conscious activity. If there is anything in the Gita that I like, is it is these two verses coming out strong as the very gist, the very essence of Krishna's teaching. He who sees the Supreme God dwelling alike in all the beings, who sees the Supreme God dwelling alike in all the men, the imperishable in things that perish. This is indeed. For seeing the Lord has same everywhere present, he does not destroy the self by self, and thus he goes to the highest goal. Thus, there is a great opening for the Vedanta to the beneficial work both here and elsewhere. This wonderful idea of the sameness and omnipresence of the Supreme Soul has to be preached for the amelioration and elevation of the human race here as elsewhere. Wherever there is evil and wherever there is ignorance and want of knowledge, I have found out by experience that all evil comes, as our scriptures say, relying upon difference and that all good comes from faith in equality, in the underlying sameness and oneness of things. This is a great Vedantic ideal to have the ideal in one thing and to apply it practically to the detail of daily life is a quite another thing. It is very good to appoint or to point out an ideal, but where is the practical way to reach it? Here, naturally, comes the difficult and the vexed question of caste and of social reformation, which has been uppermost for centuries in the minds of our people. I must frankly tell you that I am neither a caste breaker nor mere social reformer. I have nothing to do directly with your caste or with your social reformation. Live in any caste you like, but that is no reason why you should hate another man or another caste. It is love, love alone that preaches, and I base my teaching on the great Vedantic truth of the sameness and omnipresent of the soul of the universe. For nearly the past 100 years, our country has been flooded with social reformers and various social form proposals. Personally, I have no fault to find with these reformers. Most of them are good and will meaningly and well-meaningly men, and their aims too are very good well-meaning men, and their aims are very very laudable on certain points. But it is quite a patent fact that this 100 years of social reform has produced no permanent and valuable result appreciable throughout the country. The platform speeches have been made by the thousand, denunciation in volumes after volumes have been hurled upon the devoted head of the Hindu race and its civilization, and yet no good practical result has been achieved. And where is the reason for that? The reason is not hard to find. It is the denunciation itself, as I told you before. In the first place, we must try to keep our historical acquired characters as a people, I grant that we have to take a great many things from other nations, that we have to learn many lessons from outside. But I am sorry to say that most of our modern reform movements have been inconsiderate, imitated of Western means and methods of work, and that surely we not do for India. Therefore, it is that all our recent reform movements have had no result. In the second place, denunciation is not at all the way to do good. That there are evil in our society, even a child can see. And in what society are there no evils? And let me take this opportunity, my countrymen, of telling you that in comparing the different races and nations of the world I have been among, I had come to the conclusion that our people are on the whole the most moral and the most godly, and our institutions are in their plans and the prose, best suited to make mankind happy. I do not therefore want any reformation. My ideal is growth, expansion, development on national lines. As I look back upon the history of my country, I do not find it whole world another country. I do not find in the whole world another country which has done quite so much for the improvement of the human mind. Therefore, I have no words of condemnation for my nation. I tell them, you have done well. Only try to do better. Great things have been done in the past in this land, and there is both time and room for greater things to be done yet. I am sure you know that we cannot stand still. If we stand still, we die. We have either to go forward or to go backward. We have either to progress or to degenerate. Our ancestors did great things in the past, but we have to grow into the fuller life and march beyond even their great achievements. How can we now go back and degenerate ourselves? That cannot be, that must not be. Going back will lead to the national decay and death. Therefore, let us go forward and do at greater things. That is what I have to tell you. I am no preacher of any momentary social reform. I am not trying to remedy evils. I only ask you to go forward and to complete the practical realization of the schemes of human progress that has been laid out in the most perfect order by our ancestors. I not I only ask you to work to realize more and more of Vedantic ideals of the solitary man and his inborn divine nature. Had I the time, I would gladly show you how everything we have now to do was laid out years ago by our ancient law givers, and how they actually anticipated all the different changes that have taken place and are still to take place in our national institutions. They also were breakers of caste, but they were not like our modern men. They did not mean by breaking the caste that all the people in the city should sit down together and to dinner of beef sticks and champagne, nor that all fools and lunatic in the country should marry when, where, whom they choose, and reduce the country to the lunatic asylum, nor did they believe that the prosperity of the nation is to be gauged by the number of husbands its widow get. I have yet to see such a prosperous nation. The ideal man of our ancestor was Brahmin. In all our books stands out prominently this ideal of the Brahmin. In Europe, there is my lord the cardinal who is struggling hard and spending thousands of pounds to prove the nobility of his ancestor, and he will not be satisfied until he has traced his ancestor to some dreadful tyrant who lived on the hill and watched the people passing by, and whenever he had the opportunity sprang out on them and robbed them. That was the business of this nobility bestowing ancestors, and my lord cardinal is not satisfied until he can trace his ancestor to one of these. In India, on the other hand, the greatest princes seek to trace their descent To some ancient sages who dress in a bit of lion cloth, lived in the forest, eating roots, studying the Vedas. It is there that the Indian prince goes to trace his ancestry. You are the high caste when you can trace any ancestry to Rishi and not otherwise. Our ideals of high birth, therefore, is different from that of others. Our ideal is the Brahmin of the spiritual culture and renunciation. By the Brahmin ideal, what do I mean? I mean the ideal Brahminness in which worldliness is altogether absent and true wisdom is abundantly present. That is the ideal of the Hindu race. Have you not heard how it is declared that he, the Brahmin, is not amenable to law, that he has no law and he is not governed by kings, and that his body cannot be hurt? That is a perfectly true. Do not understand it in the high light thrown upon it by interested and ignorant fools, but understand it in the light of the truth and original Vedantic concept. If the Brahmin is he who has killed all selfishness and who lives and works to acquire, propagate wisdom and power of love, if the country is altogether inhabited by such Brahmins, by men and women who are spiritual and moral and good, is it strange to think of that country has been above and beyond all law? What police, what military are necessary to govern them? Why should anyone govern them at all? Why should they live under the government? They are good and noble. They are the men of God. These are our ideal Brahmins, and we read that the Satyug. We read that in the Satyug there was only one caste, and that was Brahmin. We read in the Mahabharata that the whole world was in the beginning peopled with Brahmin, and that as they began to degenerate and they became divided into different castes, and that when the cycle turns round, they will all go back to the Brahminical origin. This cycle is turning round now, and I draw your attention to this fact. Therefore, our solution of the caste question is not degrading those who are already high up in, not running amok through food and drink, is not jumping out of our own limits in order to have more enjoyment, but it comes by every one of us fulfilling the dictates of our Vedantic religion, by our attending spirituality, and by our becoming the ideal Brahmin. There is a law laid on each one of you in this land by your ancestors, whether you are Aryans or not Aryans, rishis or Brahmins, or a very lowest outcast. The command is the same to you all, that you must make progress without stopping, and that from the highest man to the lowest parihi. Everyone in this country has to try and become the ideal Brahmin. Thus, Vedantic idea is applicable not only here but over the whole world. Such is our ideal of caste has meant for raising all humanity slowly and gently towards the realization of that great ideal of the spiritual man who is non resisting, calm, steady, worshipful, pure, and meditative. In that ideal, there is God. How are these things to be brought about? I must again draw your attention to the fact that cursing and vilifying and abusing do not and cannot produce anything good. They have been tried for years and years, and no valuable result has been obtained. Good results can be obtained only through love, through sympathy. It is a great subject, and it requires several lectures to elucidate all the plans that I have in my view, and all the ideas that are in this connection coming to my mind day after day. I must therefore conclude only reminding you of this fact, that this ship of our nation, O Hindus, has been useful playing here for ages. Useful plying for here for ages. Today, perhaps it has sprung a leak. Today, perhaps it has become little worn out. And if such in the case, it behoves you and me to try our best to stop the leak and holes. Let us tell our countrymen of the danger. Let them awake and help us. I will cry at the top of my voice from one part of this country to another to awake the people to the situation and their duties. Suppose they do not hear me, still I shall not have one word to abuse for them, not one word of course. Great has been our nation's work in the past, and if we cannot do greater things in the future, let us make this consolation that we can sink and die together in peace. Be patriots. Love the race which has done such great things for us in the past. The more I compare notes, the more I love you, my fellow countrymen. You are good and pure and gentle. You have been always tyrannized over, and such is the irony of this material world of Maya. Never mind that the spirit will trump in the long run. In the meanwhile, let us work and let us not abuse our country. Let us not curse and abuse the weather beaten and work worn institutions of our thrice holy motherhood and motherland. Have no word of condemnation, even for the most superstitious and the most irrational of the institute, for they also must have served some good in the past. Remember always that there is not in a world any other country whose institution are really better in their aims and objects than the institution in this land. I have seen caste in almost every country in the world, but nowhere is their plan and purpose so glorious as here. If the caste is thus unavoidable, I would rather have a caste of purity and culture and self-sacrifice than the cost of dollar. Therefore, utter no words of condemnation. Close your lips and let your hearts open. Work out the salvation of this land and of the whole world. Each of you thinking that the entire burden is on your shoulders. Carry the light and the life of the Vedanta to every door. Rose up and the divinity that is hidden within every soul. Then, whatever may be measure of your success, you will have this you will have this satisfaction that you have lived, worked, and died for the great cause. In the success of this cause, howsoever brought about, is centered the salvation of humanity here and hereafter.